1789, people rose up in France against King Louis XVI. Mind you, the peasants were 23 millions, the nobles and the clergy were 2 millions. But in 1789, the peasants, who were the majority, rose up and staged a revolution. So we are challenging minds. What made the people to rise up in 1789? I can tell you, people cannot stage a revolution except when conditions are bad. According to big writers like Dennis Richard in Illustrated Modern Europe, is telling us that if conditions are bad, people must rise up and overthrow the government. So we are challenging minds. What made the people in 1789 to rise up and stage a revolution? So we are saying the French Revolution of 1789 was a fundamental change which took place in France in 1789 and brought an end to the ancient kingdom. New life came up, and it was a landmark in European history, as it contributed to the foundation of modern history in Europe. Its impact gradually spread beyond France and other European countries. So we are saying in 1789, a fundamental change took place in a country called France. But our had the discussion, what were the causes of the 1789 French Revolution? Number one, the economic factor of financial bankruptcy. We are saying today, France before 1789 was characterized by ever worsening financial situation. The French treasury was in a very sorry state. This financial crisis was as a result of several factors. For example, the continuous wars by France led to financial bankruptcy. It should be noted that between 1756 to 1763, France was involved in a 7 years war with Britain over the colonies of Canada and India. There was also the American War of Independence between 1776 and 1783. In these wars, France lost her colonies, such as Canada and India, to Britain, and this meant loss of raw materials, markets altogether. So we are saying the economic crisis or financial bankruptcy, which was caused by endless wars, because we are realizing France participated in different wars. It used a lot of money to fight these wars, and it lost colonies where it used to get raw materials. So by this time, it is this that led to the economic crisis. Which economic crisis led to the French Revolution of 1789? So we are saying even another issue that caused the economic crisis was the extravagance of the French crown. There was too much extravagance in the Queen's palace. For example, the king had 2,000 horses and 200 carriages. The construction of the Versailles Palace took 20 million pounds. The king's expenditure also consumed a lot of government money, i.e., it is said that it was almost half of the total expenditure of the government. Queen Marie had 500 maids, and she could buy 4 pairs of shoes every week. Hence, the extravagance of the French crown led to the financial crisis, which was one of the causes of the 1789 revolution. So we are saying the extravagance of the French crown, where the construction of the Versailles Palace took 20 million pounds. I can tell you a lot of money was used to build the what? The palace. It couldn't be bad, but the economy was in what? Crisis. So we are saying today, the extravagance of the French crown led to the economic crisis, which economic crisis led to the French Revolution of 1789. I can tell you, King Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette were so extravagant. Another issue that led to the economic crisis was the poor taxation system, where the peasants were overtaxed, and it is said the clergy and nobles were exempted from paying taxes. This therefore resulted into the narrow tax base, where the flow of income in the treasury was slow. Because the rich, nobles, and the clergy were not supposed to pay taxes, but the peasants were the one paying what? Taxes. It is this that led to the economic crisis. Because those people that had money were not supposed to pay what? Taxes. But those that did not have money, the peasants, were the one to pay taxes, especially the middle class, the traders. So it is this that led to low tax base, because people who are paying taxes were the peasants who didn't have what? Money. So it is this that led to low tax base, and this led to the economic crisis, because the government didn't have enough money to start up projects, which projects would have helped people. So we are saying it was because of the poor taxation system that there was what you call the economic crisis. And the economic crisis led to the French Revolution of 1789. Another issue that led to the economic crisis was the borrowing of loans from the middle class. I can tell you, at one time, the government borrowed a lot of money from the middle class. You hear this. The government, the borrowing of loans from the middle class and the failure to pay it back. By this time, King Louis XVI resorted to borrowing of loans from the middle class, which he failed to pay back, and this ended up creating an enmity between the monarchy and the bourgeoisie. The very rich people are called the what? The bourgeoisie. The government borrowed the money from the bourgeoisie and it failed to pay back. When it failed to pay back, this created an enmity between the government and the bourgeoisie. What the bourgeoisie did was to support the revolutionaries, because they thought that if a new government, maybe if the new government took political power, it was going to pay them. So it is this that led to the economic crisis, and the economic crisis led to the French one? Revolution, because they were demanding the government a lot of money. Another issue that caused the economic crisis was the dismissal of the financial ministers, Necker and Turgot. Following the prevailing crisis in France, King Louis was forced to appoint Turgot as a financial minister, who was at the same time an economist, to address the quagmire. Turgot told the king to tell the nobles and the clergy to pay taxes, and as they were rich. With the advice of Queen Marie, the nobles and the clergy, the king dismissed Turgot, just because his economic reforms threatened the privileges of the clergy, nobles, and the queen. He was forced later to appoint Necker as a new financial minister, who was also an economist, who also advised the king the same way Turgot had done, and was also dismissed under the advice of the queen, nobles, and the clergy. So because the economy was in crisis, the king was advised to appoint two great economists, that is Necker and Turgot. When Necker and Turgot were hired as the lead economists to solve the economic problems of the time, these ones advised the king to decrease on expenditure and what? In the palace, because the situation was not what? Good. But when by this time these lead economists told the king to decrease on expenditure in the palace, the king went and told Marie Antoinette. So by this time, Marie told the king that you must dismiss Necker and what? Turgot. The lead economists, Necker and Turgot, were what? Dismissed. So the only people who could rectify the situation were dismissed. So this increased the economic crisis. The economy moved from bad to wars, and this led to the French Revolution of 1789. The only people who could advise the king were what? Dismissed. That is Necker and Turgot. And this led to the economic crisis, which led to the French Revolution of 1789. Then our great point, another one, the role played by the philosophers. The 18th century was characterized by a good number of intellectuals who attacked the ancient regime in France. France was affected by these intellectuals who, through their writings, criticized the bad leadership of the ancient regime. These intellectuals included philosophers, encyclopedists, economists who belonged to the middle class. Despite their enlightenment in education, they were not taken as important people in the ancient regime. In their writings, they criticized the ancient regime and inspired the masses to demand for reforms, i.e., they acted as an eye-opener. They accused the ancient